Welcome to another episode of Montana Shares, your opportunity to find out about the nonprofits that make our state so great. I'm your host, Bill Crane, and today I have Mike and Julie from the Big Sky Institute for the Advancement of Nonprofits, probably the longest nonprofit name in the state. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
So, besides being, we're going to shorten it up for the rest of the show, right? We can just use BSI for Big Sky Institute, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about it.
Well, Big Sky Institute really was founded at a time when there was very little resources to help nonprofits advance, get assistance on capacity building. And so we did a lot of work statewide in our mission, which is building communities by strengthening nonprofits and increasing philanthropy. So our work has ranged from incubating the development of the Montana Nonprofit Association and staffing it for 3 years until that spun off and ready to go on its own, to incubating the development of what was then Lewis and Clark County Community Foundation, now is Helena Area Community Foundation, and Park County Community Foundation, just a variety of funding entities. And now we have moved to a lot more community-based focus in how we do our work, so it gets reinforcement. So in Helena, we have a big initiative called Helena Development Initiative that provides lots of training and assistance and sharing and networking all around fundraising skills at a time when the world is changing on funding for nonprofits, and being more effective, more efficient, and being helpful to one another is a huge priority.
You bet, without a doubt. We've got changes ahead. So you have an event coming up. Let's talk about it.
Well, it just so happens, Helena Celebrates Community Philanthropy. We're fans of philanthropy all over the place, whether it's for the arts, environment, kids, seniors, education, job training, whatever it is. But we have been watching as a generation has been passing on, and it's a generation that they kind of called it civic giving, civic philanthropy, where whatever the need was in the community, they were there and they always gave. And other generations have more specialized. I'm a big fan of the arts, and so I just give to the arts, or. So Helena Celebrates Community Philanthropy is really about the incredible importance of broad, inclusive philanthropy that reaches many different parts of the community, that really looks at what are the needs and how do we help, and is really putting the community first rather than the passions of the individual first. A little bit of a balancing act, but as we look at the changes going on in society and the needs, celebrating those people, those giving programs, the foundations, the businesses that give broadly in the community is something that we think is really important to lift up, celebrate, honor, recognize, and illuminate that for others in the community as something that's really valuable for community building.
Illuminate that. I think that's the best phrase there. It's just like, you can do this too.
That is the notion.
Good. Okay, so who are the 2017 awardees of this program?
Well, we have 3 categories this year: individual donors, foundations, and businesses. On the individual donor side is Peter Sullivan, who is getting on in years, and Peter wasn't sure about drawing attention to himself, and we said, Peter, we'd like to honor you while you're still alive. Would that be okay? And he's like, oh, okay, I can go with that. In the foundation category is the Tracy Foundation, which is now in its 3rd generation of identity and 3rd generation of leadership from the same family. And they have been generous all over the community. And in the business category is a very atypical organization, the Blackfoot River Brewing Company, which in their Pint Nights, community nights, and partnership programs have really embraced an incredible diversity of nonprofit organizations. So it's that theme about giving broadly in the community that really is reflected in all 3 choices.
I know we personally have benefited from 2 of those 3, so I know for a fact they do great work in the state. So tell us a little bit about the reasons and how you choose these people.
Well, they they are not self-chosen. They don't come in and say, you know, I'd like to be honored.
Right.
We put out the word to nonprofits in the Helena area to say, if there are donors, foundations, businesses that have been generous to you that also give broadly, if you'd like to nominate them, there's a process and a form. And so for Peter Sullivan, the Helena Symphony nominated Peter. Mm-hmm. For the Tracy Foundation, that was Grant Street Theater. Mm-hmm. And this is no secret to you, but right. It might be to the audience. And Montana Community Shares nominated Blackfoot River Brewing Company.
Right.
And I think, should I say more about the reasons for how they got it?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, what the heck.
What the heck, you got it.
Well, I think, starting with Blackfoot in reverse order, theirs is a fascinating story because when the legislation passed that enabled them to go from wholesale to have a retail operation, they were really looking at how do we compete with these huge international beer conglomerates? And one of their critical building blocks was the community. Mm-hmm. And essentially, I interviewed Brian Smith, and he said, if we can really strongly connect with our community and really get into the DNA of the community, that will give us an incredible competitive edge that these big conglomerates headquartered elsewhere won't have. Mm-hmm. And so that really became how they think about customer service, how they hire employees. There's this very strong community and customer focus, which was not only good for business, but ultimately it became expressed on philanthropic giving. Mm-hmm. And they were one of the early pioneers in the state, becoming a homebrew operation that went business-wide. And they were early, the first one in Helena to have, some call it pint night, they call it community night. And their giving per purchased amount is very high, but they do a lot of terrific work in helping the organizations really understand how to take advantage of the opportunity. Mm-hmm. What came out as they were doing in the interview, as they were doing their early thinking and planning, was that they're open to all kinds of nonprofits, big, small, different kinds, but they realize a lot of nonprofits don't have the budget to have a nice fancy place to have a fundraising event. So by really turning their retail operation into a good place, a welcoming place, a fun place to hold an event, that creates a venue that was out of reach for a lot of nonprofits. So that's a really special part of who they are and what they do. Mm-hmm. The Tracy Company was a little smaller in the earlier years in their giving, and a lot of scholarship money. But when Jimmy O'Connell Jr. passed away, a big part of his estate went into the foundation, and suddenly it had a lot of opportunity to say, who are we now? What do we want to do? And their particular focus is around capital campaigns and spending on facilities and sometimes expensive equipment. And they have a very interesting philosophy, which is not many funders give to capital campaigns. Mm-hmm. That's a challenge. And if we focus on that and do it well, then the organizations we help can focus their fundraising on other kinds of opportunities to build the program around the facility. And so in that philosophy of sustainability, give them a good facility and they will be more sustainable. They have basically been very, very broad in their guidelines on who they will fund for capital campaigns because they never know what the needs are going to be, and they're always curious. Right. So they're very, very open, as opposed to a number of regional and national foundations that will give to capital campaigns, but their guidelines about who can access are very narrow. Mm-hmm. With Peter, I think it's just he's a gregarious fellow. He loves the community. He's out, he does a lot of things. He was a beneficiary of philanthropy early in his life when he got a scholarship to go to Carroll College, and he couldn't have gone without that scholarship. So it made a bit of an impression on him, this thing about paying it forward. And so he's been very generous to Carroll over the years, but he and his wife Sheila, who passed away a few years ago, she was one of the folks that helped start Grant Street Theater. And they have all these years of involvement in the community, and so it's the arts. It is a lot of things around basic human needs, from food share to great programming through the YWCA, YMCA. So again, it's this kind of really deeper engagement, and Peter himself not only gives money, but he has been involved in leading a number of capital campaigns in this community. So he's really been a resource for the community in a variety of ways.
Sounds like they're all well-deserving recipients in my book. Let's talk a little bit more about the details of the event.
Sure.
So who are some of the underwriters that make this happen?
Well, we've been very lucky to gather a number of businesses that have been very generous. So far we have Opportunity Bank of Montana, Allegra Marketing, and Radisson Colonial Hotel, which is where we will be holding the event, so we appreciate their support. Independent Record, the Spire Family Foundation, Crowley Fleck Law Firm, South Hills Dental, and Trimec Group, which is a local realtor group. So we really very much appreciate that business support. And again, these are also organizations that I think really fit the theme of the event too, which is generous giving in the community.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, that's a list that you hear normally for sponsors of an event, and that's what philanthropy is all about. And so who should come? I mean, I'm coming. I bought my ticket today.
We did
so
notice that.
Who besides me
and we appreciate that,
come?
Bill.
Well, all your relatives.
All the relatives, okay.
Yeah. No, really, we do see this as a community-wide event. Of course, we're targeting nonprofits, foundations, funders in the nonprofit world, staff, board directors, just people who really understand what the nonprofit communities need. But really, anybody in the community should feel excited to come. They're pretty much familiar with Blackfoot Brewery, and as Mike has mentioned, Peter Sullivan knows a lot of people, but really honoring organizations like the Tracy Foundation that may not have as knowledgeable of a title for the broader community, the general community, but really wanting to lift these people up and showcase them and have the community come and be part of this event would be wonderful.
Just come out and have a good time. You've got a good dinner lined up.
We do. The Radisson has been wonderful. We have choices between a chicken, a fish, a black Wellington, which is a vegetarian meal. We're looking at also a vegan and a vegetarian dish, so don't let the meal choices be a barrier for people to join and buy a ticket. We'll definitely see what we can do to accommodate you. And really looking forward to having it at the Radisson.
Good. So how do you get tickets? What's the best way?
Well, the best way, I think, is to get onto Big Sky Institute's website. We have a link directly to the Eventbrite site, which is where you can purchase your tickets online. Or you're more than welcome, anybody is more than welcome to call our office directly at 443-5860, and we'll definitely sell tickets over the phone too. So definitely encourage folks to jump on our website though.
Okay. Come out and have a great dinner. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about, you're trying to get some more youth involved with philanthropy. Is that correct?
Well, in part, to tell you the truth, we've gotten inspired by all kinds of individual kids, classes who see something that moves them and do some fundraising for that. And those kids are going to be philanthropy's leaders tomorrow, further down the road. So we've just begun discussions with the Helena school system about how do we more systematically work within the schools with principals and teachers to reach out and say how important community philanthropy is, how important it is for kids to say, I can make a difference, and working together as a group of kids, a class, that they can make a difference. So we're looking toward really having some deeper engagement over the years going forward. We probably won't have elementary school classes competing with high school classes. We'll rotate age groups each year, but it's something in which there's wonderful stories to be told And by, once again, illumination, lifting them up, honoring them, recognizing them, having them be rewarded at the same time you have people in their 80s being recognized and businesses being recognized, that they see they're part of that larger fabric of the community of how philanthropy makes wonderful things happen, and hopefully that will then energize other kids to do something themselves.
I was just chatting with someone else about the idea of taking that to a college level as well. These are the people that will eventually start either working at a place or they'll be starting their own business. And like you're saying, using this illumination idea that as you start a business, yeah, you'll struggle for a while, but hopefully you'll be successful, and then hopefully you become part of the community. So you could probably have one year you could do a college competition as well.
It's within the realm of possibility. If we do well with the whole school system, then they will be prepared when they go to college to really have significant events.
You bet. Okay, so let's wrap up with just hitting these details on your event one more time. The name, the date, the whole works.
Sure. The event is called Helena Celebrates Community Philanthropy. It's scheduled for Tuesday, November 7th, so make sure you go out and vote first, and then arrive at our event at 5:30 p.m. It will begin then at the Radisson Colonial Inn Hotel, and we will have, starting with an open cash bar, appetizers, and then a sit-down dinner, and we'll be honoring the 3 entities that Mike has talked about: Peter Sullivan, the Tracy Foundation, and the Blackfoot River Brewing Company. And we should hopefully be wrapped up by 8:30 so folks can go home and finish watching the election returns.
Too bad. Well, wonderful. Thank you for coming on the show today. And I really, really want to appreciate, thank you for the work that you do in the community and the work you do that isn't always, sometimes I use the term warm and fuzzy, because, you know, if you're working for helping homeless people or people that are starving or pets that need help, that's really tangible. And some of this other work is a little less tangible, but it's equally important because that feeds a lot of the money to the groups that are more tangible. So I appreciate the intangible work that you guys do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
And so thank you for coming on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in this evening, and have a wonderful evening.